is from 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. But in your hearts, honour Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defence to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect.
Everyone? Ryan? Everyone?
Hello.
Yep. So this is the second of our conversations. We're going to do one on the last Sunday of every month, so we get to know each other a little bit better and the things that are happening around our church. Before we get started though, I need to say that this is a very intimate place. It's a very sacred place. So I ask you to honour Ryan's story as he brings it to us and hold it with love and respect. All right? Welcome. All right. I beg your pardon. Let's move back. There we go. Yeah. That was your reading, Ryan. Mm-hmm. Why choose that reading? Why is that important to you?
Well, I think a lot of people generally in the world, especially now in our political times, with what's happening with the things with Charlie Kirk and just a lot of things in the world. People have questions more than ever about life. Why we're here. The reasons. And a lot of people have been turning to the church lately and asking questions. And then there's genuine people and other people that are looking to sort of poke holes in us and disregard us as well. So I think it's we're in a sort of a generation of information where information is everywhere. Mm-hmm. Online a lot of it's misleading, but so I think we need to be there to be able to give an answer to people when they have those questions. In the past, there's been, for example, to give a story, my current pastor, he was a Muslim for 16 years, and he was a Christian before that. Is that all right?
Yeah, I'm going to just put that on its head, I think.
So he was originally going to a church, and he was part of our sort of crosswords thing going back 20-something years. Yep. And he had some really hard questions, and the church he went to at the time, he asked the pastor, this would have been probably the early 90s or something, and the pastor pretty much told me you shouldn't be asking those type of questions, you shouldn't be asking.
No.
And so it flipped him to this whole other path of his life for 16 years. He was away from the Lord, and until he studied for himself and came back. But it's just little things like that, that's sort of the opposite of what we should be doing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think anyone who does any studies ultimately walks away from their childhood understanding to dig a bit deeper and come back and invite people deeper into that journey. How long have you been a Christian for?
I'm not good with maths, about 06 I think. So it's almost 20 years I think, right? Something like that.
And so what brought you to Christianity? What was the moment that you went, Jesus is for me?
Well, I already had those seeds sort of implanted in me, so I already had a belief. I had experiences in my life, some pretty extreme sort of spiritual, personal experiences, which made me know that God was real, but I didn't. When you're young, especially a teenager, you want to do what you want to do most of the time, and you think you're more intelligent than you are, and things like that. So you get to a point of trying to do it by yourself for a long time, but every sort of path you follow, it goes to like an emptiness. There's no real lasting fulfillment, So I got to the point where I just sort of gave up and said, all right, I'm yours, God. And just opened my heart, and that sort of, it was a big release. The moment I did that, it was probably 2 hours of God bringing back everything in my life up to that point that I'd gone through, that I'd done, that I justified to myself.
Yep.
But was ultimately, sin. And,
as Paul would say, done.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're basically saying is the journey into Christ is to do less and surrender, not more, and triumph. Yeah. It's counterproductive though, isn't it, really? I mean, we think that the more we do, the further we should get. And yet the response is to actually do the reverse. So, were you playing around in crosswords at that time? Where did crosswords as the program evolve?
Well, because I was already into the sort of the hip hop scene in Adelaide quite well, and I was loving my music, and I thought, well, well, maybe I can use this music thing as a positive outlet.
Yep.
But in Adelaide, there really wasn't anything going on at the time, so I was reaching out on the internet and found there a whole community of guys in America that were into it, and so they sort of became my family, because even going to church, I sort of felt a bit like a black sheep, and I felt sort of different than especially people that were raised there all the time. And
sing the songs like we've sung today.
I still went and I still built like connections and grew a lot.
Yeah.
But to find those sort of close family, you know, I went online and I found all these American guys that came from sort of the same background and shared the same passions.
Yeah.
And it was the leader of one of those that actually said, hey, there's actually a group in Australia, because he was networked, that are doing similar things in Sydney.
Yeah, right.
So it was 2010 when I first went over there and met the crew. They'd been doing crosswords for about 3 years, I think, at that time.
Yep.
So I got to meet them, and I was really inspired and encouraged by what they were doing. And so I wanted to replicate it here and get something going on.
Yeah. Now, I just want to come back to something you said earlier in that conversation. You said, to use my music for good. What was it being used for beforehand?
Well, I guess it would be, you know, now that I get into thinking of things, it would have been my subjective version of good, you know, which, you know, is what I think is good. But then there was a lot of negative as well. In the hip hop scene, there's the battle scene is a big thing, where people battle each other and will just say as mean things as they can to each other. Yeah. And we do that in a freestyle format off the top of our head a lot of the time. So doing that for, you know, years on end, your brain starts to sort of change and become very negative. You know? But I thought, you know, it's an instrument, and you can use it just like a lot of things. We can use all the instruments that God gives us, you know, for bad or for good, many things.
Yeah. So a lot of these guys often look at your artwork. So Ryan is responsible for the artwork on the other side of the car park there. And we have ongoing battles as to what it might be saying. The one that's getting a lot of traction at the moment is your purple one.
Yeah.
That's more angular than flowing as your normal style would be. So what does that suggest, or what's the word that's...
So it's just my name, Nfors. So yeah, you can look at it. I do a different style every time I paint. So
you do?
It's a bit of a maze, and it's a bit of a cryptic. If people want to, like, you used to have those books years ago, we used to stare at them and put them close and try to work out what it says. I try to make it something like that. So,
right.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that's come up on it a few times is the bishops, because we're not really a bishop type of people. And we've got these two bishops, which I don't mind looking over the car park. We've had less... the drug dealer that sometimes sells out of our car parks not been around since they've been there, so that's a good thing. What's the background behind the bishops?
So I'm big into history. I'm a massive historian in all my studies. So not just looking at I do study the church fathers, but not also what they said, but the things they did in their life. And so, you know, they were a big part of, you know, our society, Western society we have today. So, you know, they started the first hospitals ever, you know, they were stopping slavery, and they were innovators in all these fields of the things we take for granted today in our society. Everyone is, Christian or not, but they were, you know, devoted their lives to, you know, getting us to where we are today in the church.
Yeah. Well, thank you for putting them on our walls. You do talk about making a difference in the world quite often when I'm chatting to you. What does that mean for you?
I guess personally, it's, you know, knowing that we are, you know, time bound, and that, you know, there's so much need out there in the world. And little time, you know, we've always got limited resources and things, so it's trying to make the most of, you know, every second that God gives us to, one, equip others, you know, to be able to do more instead of trying to do things yourself. And making the most of your time as you can in you know, building God's kingdom and trying to plant seeds out there, and you're seeing that multiply. You know, I think that's what each of us are trying to, you know, do. That's the aim. Yep.
Now you've multiplied. You've got a family yourself.
Yeah.
Been married for
2021, I think, COVID, so...
24 years?
5 years, I think, yeah. 2021.
2021?
Yeah.
My math's bad.
Yeah.
About 4 years. And how's that going?
Oh, it's great, yeah. Wonderful. Yeah.
What's it changed in terms of the way you do your evangelism and the hip hop and the paint work? What's changed from
hasn't changed a lot. One thing I need to do before I got married is to talk to my prospective wife in detail about what I wanted to do over, the next few years. I said, look, I really want to devote my life to doing this. Will you be alright to come along in that journey and having that talk beforehand?
Yeah.
Obviously, we had a baby since that time, so that's taken a bit of time away from it, but at the same time, that's another huge investment, and it's a huge blessing as children are. So,
and being here is a way of keeping your family a little bit safer than it might have been, and giving you a location to do. Definitely. So we are very honoured to be able to partner with you in the way you're doing that ministry. I'll ask you a couple more questions about about crosswords, and then I want to tap into some other conversations that you and I have had. How many people would you get along to crosswords?
It can fluctuate a lot. It's similar to Unchained, our sort of demographic. Like, if you know the hip hop scene in general in Adelaide, it is full of a lot of negative impacts. So there's a lot of drug and alcohol abuse, things like that in the scene itself, and there's a lot of negative aspects. So a lot of the guys that come and join us, are still like recovering. It can take a lot of years. Mm-hmm. So we'll have anywhere between about 15 and 60 people, depending. But there's a lot of guys. We have a lot of guys with disabilities and things like that too. So it can fluctuate depending on that. Yeah.
Yep. And what kind of pressures does that put on you and Joel, who runs it with you, when you're out there and you're painting and there's all these people hanging around? What's the pressures like?
It can just depend on the week. It's not too bad, really. I've been doing it for a long time, and because of my background in youth work, and I've done mentoring a lot of things, and I've been helping a lot of guys like that for a long time, so it's just sort of become a second nature for me. Yeah. There are times when it can be challenging. We had a guy rock up, he was a bit inebriated a couple of weeks ago, and the last one before, and so you just got to sort of take him aside.
Roll with it.
Yeah, the guys didn't bring him yesterday. So. But we've been able to give them resources because they weren't aware of Teen Challenge or anything like that.
Yeah, right.
So we've been giving them resources, and because they really want to help their friends, And, Yeah, so so some of it's just education, Yeah.
Well, and you're certainly meeting people in our community that wouldn't come here on a Sunday and join in with us in this stuff. So again, we are blessed to have you as part of the programs of this place. So.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
And it gives you a little bit more knowledge on when we say please be praying for crosswords. It's not as unknown to you when we're praying with, high evangelism, high exposure in some ways a very destructive scene. Yeah,
and some of the guys that come up aren't saved at all, but they just love being around us. One of the guys who paints every time he comes, you see out there. He came with us to our summer in Sydney, and he travelled all the way. He came to a 4-day Christian summer and was part of that. But we're aware a lot of the time it takes patience, it takes time, things like that. So we run it more as like an open transitional thing, where it's a community event, anyone can come, whether they're a Christian or not. And they come one time, and then we can transition them to a church if they like. So,
cool. Now, this is the other part of our conversation where you've gone to other events in our state where people say, it's an open event, come along. What do you like going to?
So I attend many mosques in Adelaide. I had the Ramadan festival a few weeks ago, so I went to 2 mosques. They also run big festivals. There's big Islamic festivals, and they got one in the showgrounds in 2 weeks. I had a big one in the parklands last year. So there's a whole nother chapter of Crosswords I started about 2 years ago called Crosswords Discussions, and it's an international group. So we have people from Malaysia or different countries. And what I do is I do a lot of training for them of how to communicate, how to talk to people from different belief systems, and how to be able to defend our faith, like we see in that 1 Peter verse.
Mm-hmm.
So that connects up to that, and that's not something that I sort of planned either. I'm a very laid back, sort of introverted type of person. I'm not an aggressive, like, debating type of person. So for me, it wasn't a natural thing, but it's something that, you know, God had always put on my heart to always to read the Quran at one stage, and I got through to reading it eventually, and I was just sort of a bit. It talked about Christians a lot in it, and I was a bit surprised. I was like, wow, this is talking about me a lot. I better take this more serious.
Yeah.
So I spent 6 months sort of really studying the religion and getting quite deep. And at about the 6 month point is when I met my pastor, the pastor who comes, he spoke here one time, Ryan, who had just come out of that. He'd been in that scene for years and had a real love for the Muslim population. So meeting him and connecting with him, he's been teaching me and training me as well.
Right.
But the other thing that got me really interested is in, so my best friends at work are Muslims, you know, and they've got a real love for me. One of my co-workers, I trained him to be in a manager position. I left for 2 years. I came back and he was my boss. But we've been best friends for years, and we've spent maybe 30 or 40 hours discussing the Bible and the Quran, things like that.
Yeah.
Very open. His children go to a Christian school. He sends them to there because he knows that they will get, you know, better morals there than they would in a public school.
Yeah, right.
So he's got a huge respect for me.
Yep.
And because I've studied his religion and because I've spent this time, they have a big respect for me as well.
Yeah.
And it also helps me to see things from their own paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so over time, I developed long-term relationships with many of the local Muslims here.
Yep.
But then I also just go and talk to their leaders as well.
Yep.
And we'll be quite forward, but I do it in a very sort of Aussie, relaxed way, you know? Yeah. So I do that online as well. So I do online debates, not just with Muslims, but also with atheists and people from all types of religions. I do these, what I call discussions.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
If I asked you, and I'm not, but if I asked you to put your hand up and say, would you openly go and sit and meet a Muslim? Would you read the Quran? Would you put your openness to that kind of stuff? I'm betting a fair bit of you would put your hands up and go, no, I'm not doing that. Like, that would just freak me out. That goes against everything we as Christians should be about. And yet, what does Jesus mean by loving your neighbour? Should we fear people of a different faith and position, or do we understand that Jesus also went to the cross for them as well? And they equally need to hear the gospel as much as anybody else.
Yeah.
May or may not. Now, I'm conscious that you've got some videos here for us, so you sing out whenever you want to use them.
Yep.
And invite us into them.
Yeah, we could go through a couple of them.
All
right. So what I do is, instead of actually, this is more of a short form for social media. TikTok, people are all on these things now with short.
Yep.
So you've got to make something catchy that catches people. So I aim this, because you can pick your demographic, I aim this for Muslims.
Yep.
But what it does is it doesn't actually directly attack their religion to be too offensive, because it's the first argument. Well, what it does is it attacks the way they get people to join their religion. They have what they call dawah people, you know, people that invite them into their religion.
Yep.
And whereas we as Christians primarily use things like prophecy, you know, we have quite a few ways. One of their things they will use is what they call scientific miracles.
Right.
So they'll have like a scientific fact and say, no one could have known this 1400 years ago because they didn't have microscopes and things.
Yeah.
And this is a primary reason why people join Islam, because of these scientific miracles.
Right.
But when you actually go, and if you go do some research a bit deeper, actually people were pretty smart long before them. And, so people put one on and went, well, look. So this is how we know the universe was expanding. So in this one we've got about 6 books of the Bible that speak about it thousands of years before Muhammad was around.
Yeah.
The universe. But we don't generally use that as a way to get people to join Christianity.
So this is purely targeted at the evangelists, just
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
poke
that's
holes in
right.
them. But also anyone else who might be scrolling gives them a bit of information to go, well, wasn't it here and here and here and here as well?
Yeah, and even people that are just curious, or maybe they come into a Muslim in a few years who's invited them, and that's the first claim they give you. The second one is the number one thing that they talk about. This is about embryology, because it actually lists in the Quran the 6 stages of how fetuses develop in the Quran.
Yeah.
This will be a number one that they use. Aristotle, before he was a philosopher, he wrote a lot about biology of animals and embryology.
Yep.
Hippocrates was like the father of medicine. That's where we get the Hippocratic oath from.
Yep.
And Galen, who once you really studied Galen's items, he took Hippocrates' teaching and expanded on it.
Yeah.
And you find it all throughout the Quran and Muhammad's teachings. You find all of Galen's teachings.
Yeah.
So it's about educating people about, hey, actually people knew all of this information well before.
It's a good PR job, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
He just sort of gathered stuff that was around current thinking and sort of claimed it as...
Yeah, well, one of his nicknames was the ear, because he was always listening.
Yeah.
And there's even about 3 or 4 verses in the Quran which he even puts it there and says, these people are actually accusing me of copying stories from a long time ago. And it's actually in there,
Isn't it? He is where he is.
Once you read it, probably up to a quarter of the Quran is just copied from other sources.
Yeah. And as you said, points regularly to Christianity and even Judaism for the holiness and the better way.
Yeah, even that there's contradictions. So you've got the second surah, which is the first one he ever wrote when he was only 10 or 15. There was only a very small community. And so he was in a minority and he was trying to convert Christians. So he wrote many positive things about Christians there and said you can get through. But so chapter 9, which is the last chapter he made, shows a complete turnaround where it actually, talks about being able to attack Christians and things like that when he was in the majority and had, 50,000 plus army after taking Mecca. Yeah, so you see quite a contrast throughout the Quran.
It's always interesting how power reveals the true nature of a person, isn't it? And that's, of course, the part that most Christians hear about. Yes, we're allowed to kill Christians, and therefore, and we've seen it around the world. There's a lot of atrocities done towards Christianity from Muslims. And of course, the teachings that are used for power more often than
political power, especially.
We've got one more.
So I did a debate. The very first debate I did was about 2 years ago online with a deist. I don't know if you know what a deist is, but they believe there is some sort of power out there in the world, but it's not personal. It controls things. So I did. This was my first online debate, and I was almost going to cancel it because I'm not the type of person to do this type of thing, and it's not natural for me, and I didn't want to do it. And but I just. It feels like a burden, like I'm in this position, God wants me to do it, I don't want to do it, I want to cancel, but I'll just do it anyway. So
I often say the hardest thing about ministry is getting out the front door.
Yeah, that's right.
Once you're out the front door, you're in it.
I mean, now it's been 2 years, I've done like 20 debates, I don't even think about it now. It's actually becomes fun and I get a real high out of it. But this first one, I was real nervous because he was a very intelligent guy and he ran quite a big podcast and things like that. So we did that debate and he brought up some things like the similar creation accounts from before Genesis. There's quite a few ancient cultures that have similar accounts. And so he had some very good questions up, but I was able to answer them. Even if I look back now on them, I probably could have answered them a lot better. Once you reflect on things, you can always do better. But we had another following debate and I didn't hear from him for a while, and then he sent me this message last October which said I wanted to reach out and share something. I've been attending church for the last 3 months or so, and a few weeks ago I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Saviour. I wanted to reach out and say thank you for having patience with me with the interactions we've had. I appreciate your words of wisdom and the measured evidence-based approach you take when discussing Christianity. You played a big part in my conversion, and I will never be able to thank you enough for that. Much love. So when I look back on that debate, and I think, I'm so glad I was obedient to God at that time,
Yeah, and it's interesting to me that when we when we look at this stuff is that we all think that we've got to have all the answers and we've got to be trained in theology and yet it's you who God chose to meet with this guy. You would even look back and go, yeah, some of the questions were a bit, but it was what he needed to hear at that time. It's not necessarily what you needed to do. And that faithfulness to, as I say, get out the front door, the faithfulness to have that interview. And most of us, I think, are scared of the unknown more than what it is to share. So if you could encourage these guys in terms of who they're meeting in the street, or in their workplace, even their neighbours, what word of encouragement could you give these guys in terms of being Christ's presence in whatever situation they find themselves?
Yeah, well, I think the number one thing I end up teaching and talking about with people a lot of the time is communication, is learning how to communicate more efficiently and in a better manner where it's effective. So there's good resources on learning how to do that better, because we go through our life, just talking and doing our best that we know, but actually we could be a lot more effective on how we talk to people, how we build relationships, our whole mentality behind things. So I think that can be really effective. Things like being able to just listen to people, asking them questions. And then on top of that, asking more questions. And as well as getting to know people more and more, it also gives you, when you're in a conversation, it gives your brain more time to process what they're saying and think of something,
And it's that pausing that I find the Holy Spirit just chucks a word in.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you hear yourself saying something and you think, where did that come from? But all of a sudden, it's out and it's gone and it's doing its thing.
And the other side is people will start to, it's like it's like you're getting points in a way. The more you can listen to someone and what they say, the more they will respect what you have to say back to them as well.
I've heard for many years, the criticism against Christianity is we want to tell everyone the answers, but we're not prepared to listen to theirs. And so you're starting with listening. And earning the right to then, when they ask, to share.
That's right. That, as well as learning how to critically think, to be able to think past things. That's what those videos I was showing is for. You get given a claim, even by a pastor. In any scenario, we should be thinking about it. We can go and do our own our research and study it and think critically with everything. So a lot of it, especially with people in other religions, is teaching how to critically think as well.
So I often think about my years in fishing. I don't fish much anymore because my mate who I would fish with died. But I started off with this Kmart crappy rod. And if I could feel a fish on the end of the line, it was a miracle, right? But the more I fished, the more I needed a better line in my reel, and then better hooks on the end, and then better floats, and then I upgraded my rod because, well, the rod was good, but I could go to this nibble tip and go a little bit better. And so there was this progression of equipping my fishing as I went along. And one of the challenges, I think, that's not in your story, but what we're challenged to do is that we've got to go out and get the best rod, the best hooks, the best lines, and actually to fish with that stuff, you get more tangles. It's harder to fish with good gear than it is with garbage gear, but you learn the skills as you go along. And what I'm hearing in your story is that you started off just stepping out and having a chat with a fella online and shared this message with you, that he's praising Christ, he's become a Christian, but he's recognised you're part of that journey. And now, as you're saying, you're inviting us into other resources that are out there. And you and I have talked about whether we hold some sessions where you invite us into some of that equipping to help us as a church better listen and better answer people's questions. This is, I guess, for me, Ryan, you tipped the school into, for a lot of us, we've been Christians for a long time. And we're comfortable with the way we do Christianity. We're often fearful of other religions, other people of other faith. Certainly, we might even say the Islamisation of Australia that's going on at the moment. But if the church is silent, there's almost permission for that to occur, isn't there?
Definitely.
So what would you say is an encouragement for these guys to tend their ear to the conversations of the people that they're having?
Could you reword that? Sorry.
What would you suggest to them is a good way to start? Yes, listening.
Yeah, a bit like what I said with the conversation. And also, to get to this point here, it wasn't just, what I learned in church. You can learn so much from the pastor, but it was about God putting on my heart, a passion to actually learn who He is more and more. One of the good analogies that I use is probably most people here own a car. But
not for much longer, but while we've still got this.
But so how many of you know how a car works exactly? You put hand up, like every part of the car, pretty much how it functions and things like that? No? I can't see a single hand. No big rev heads here. But generally a lot of us, we know, we put petrol in it, it takes us somewhere, we get in, we drive, we go somewhere. That's the car,
Yeah.
But we don't take the time to understand how it functions, how everything works together. And I think sometimes it's the same, with our faith in Christianity, We know these basic things, but we don't take the time to study more of who God is, and learning the Bible more, learning, a lot of different aspects like the history of the church, and I study philosophy and all these other aspects, that all go together. And so, I think that's something that generally, not just today, but I think it's always been a bit of a bit of a weakness in the church that we don't.
It's the ongoing problem when you've got the answer. We forget about the questions. Who's the Lord and Saviour? We know the answer. But how do we invite other people on that journey of discovering who He is for them?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And the long game of earning that right. I often find for people, their lives are full. You've put marriage and a child into your story. And there's a lot of things once schooling starts and all the rest that will want to chip away at that time. And there's a space where a lot of Christians, they're just tired from doing life. And Christianity is almost the thing on the end of the line rather than the thing that begins the line. And what I hear from your journey is that it's the beginning. That underwrites everything that happens for you.
Yeah, that's right. And because I go out there doing what you might call evangelism in my workplace with all of my work colleagues. I do it everywhere, but it's not just going and giving a gospel straight message to them. I'd lose my job probably the first day I did that, And studying Islam, actually, our gospel message to them is their only unforgivable sin in their religion, to believe that. So it's very hard. So a lot of the time, my conversations will start with talks about history and, where how Christianity's affected, our society today, or I'll talk about science and physics and philosophy, and I'll have all these discussions that interrelate and point towards a creator. Because I think sometimes, depending on the people, but we take many steps forwards, instead of starting at the very beginning of, is there a God? Is there an existence? So I think sometimes we jump very far ahead, it depends on the situation and things. But especially with political things, like you might have, people arguing for pro-life and abortion and things like that, whereas actually the ones following abortion, they don't even believe there's a creator to begin with. So it's the same as taking it back to that base level foundation, and learning, learning who God is, and then, once you're able to show that there is a creator, well, who is He? Is He personal? What's the message? And then that's when you look at the different religions and compare.
Is there anything else you want to sort of bring today in our conversation, or?
No, I'm happy if anytime you want to run a workshop. I do run a workshop on these type of things, just at the very basic level. There's also a very good book called Tactics by Greg Kokel. You can get that at Koorong and online as well. It's easy to read for anyone, and that really goes into how to communication and talking to people. We've got crosswords discussions on. I could send you a link sometime or something if anyone wants to.
We'll put them into the
follow.
newsletter.
But anytime, you got any questions, I'm always happy to answer as well.
Okay, so to finish off, there's something big that's potentially happening at the end of this year.
Yeah. So we got every year we run a big summit. So we're like a 4 days of workshops event nationally, and this is the first year we'll be hosting in Adelaide. It's been in Sydney nearly every other year since 2010. So yeah, things are still on the works of how and how it's going to all happen and go together because it's a big process. But we bring over international artists from different countries. People will be coming from interstate over here. So yeah, we're still working out whether we're going to host all of it here or a portion of it or how it's going to be at the moment. But and yeah, it's very exciting for us.
Yeah, and I'll be working with you as much as we can to have it all here.
Yeah.
But I want you guys to know we're going to get interrupted later on this year for an international event.
Yeah.
And I think that's an honour to be a part of and something worth investing in. As we look at Christianity changing, evolving and responding in people's needs rather than in the programs that we're running. So,
Definitely.
yeah. Ryan, thank you for your time this morning. Thank you for making the time to come and spend it with us. Would you like to thank Ryan in the age-old tradition? And
Yeah.
so he's here afterwards. You can chat with him and bend his ear and maybe even find out when things are happening to attend if you'd like to. Ryan, thank you for your time again, mate.
Thank you.